All microphones intact. Oh, I don't have my notes. Let me let me transfer my notes from one computer to another.
I wish we were recording this part. Are you recording right now?
I am recording this part.
Wow. Marshall's not prepared.
Ha 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 ha. My sound is coming over the speaker. Sorry about that, Charlie.
Oh, gosh, Marshall.
Not now.
It's one thing after the other. What's next?
Now it's all proper.
Uh-huh. You got your notes?
I got enough of them.
It's the Draftsmen Show. Yeah. Let's do it. Welcome, everybody, to the Draftsmen podcast, where we talk about art and being drafts and being men and women.
No, that didn't work. That didn't work. I'll give you another chance, though. Everyone is allowed to. That's been a big theme in this podcast, is that you're allowed to fail before you succeed. And so go ahead.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Draftsmen podcast. My name is Stavrik Bako. This is Marshall. We're going to get through this. Marshall Vandruff, and we're going to get through this podcast in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We're going to talk really fast. Okay. Go. Talk. We're going to talk about strengths.
Strengths.
This
came up because the first episode we did of this season was about your art career, and you brought up
my art career? No, other people's art career.
Oh yeah.
Keep going.
Our audience's art careers.
Yeah.
And you brought up the principle of 80-20, and that so often we spend about 80% of our time doing the stuff that yields 20% of results, and we spend about 20% of our time doing the stuff that yields 80% of the results. So why shouldn't we put 80% of our time into the stuff that yields 80% of the results? And I'm looking forward to this podcast so that I will learn.
I didn't bring up 80-20. I brought up triple 80-20.
Explain. Remind us what that was.
Where you apply the 80-20 rule 3 times onto itself.
So what do the numbers end up being?
It was something like 1% of your effort yields 51% of your results or something like that.
That's right. You did mention that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me get this right. 20% of my results come from 80% of my... No, let's start again.
It doesn't matter. The numbers aren't the important thing here. The important thing is the process to get to those numbers, but
the applying it 3 times is the important thing.
Yes, the applying it 3 times. If you don't get to 51-1, it doesn't matter. If you get to 47, how do you even measure this? It doesn't freaking matter.
Okay, but since we're just starting and I'm a little hazy coming into this, 3 times. Say it again, and slow down a little bit about how you apply it 3 times.
Well, I'm going to say it quickly because we had it in the first episode, so go back. But basically, you apply the 80-20 rule. You figure out the 20% of effort that yields the 80% of the results. Then you look at within that 20% of effort, what can you identify? What 20% of effort within that yields 80% of those results? Okay. And then you do that 3 times, and then you get to some really, really detailed, minute thing that you can do that will yield a lot of results. Like the most important thing that you need to figure out.
That was the restaurateur's peppers, right?
Yeah. We went over this. But the other thing I talked about also was the RRR method.
Triple R.
So triple 80-20 and triple R.
Okay.
We got those 2 little things.
And that was the risk reduction
rate. And that's where you focus on the things that will reduce your risk of failure instead of falling trapped to confirmation bias, where you just try to prove yourself right and try to do the things that will show that you're heading down the right path. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Instead of trying to prove that the decision I already made is the right decision.
Yes.
Question,
why is this wrong? What is the biggest threat to this failing?
Yeah.
And focus on fixing those problems that will be the threat to it failing.
It's a celebration of the negative to create the positive.
Exactly. You discover the positives through getting rid of the negatives.
Yeah.
But if you focus on all the positives all the time, those negatives creep up on you, and then they just like destroy all your positives.
Well, I feel like the excitement about what I'm going to learn.
During that episode, when we talked about it, you brought up the idea that, hey, well, it's not that easy. Let's figure out how to find our strengths. Let's focus on that. So this is what we're doing in this episode,
okay.
Strength finding.
Okay. Can you give us a synopsis of what you have to tell us today?
I'm not going to synopsize.
Synopsize is fine.
Synopsisize. I like synopsisize. I'm just going to start.
Okay.
The synopsis is we're going to talk about strengths.
All right. I'm ready for you to begin.
The first thing I want to say is that I never really went through a process of trying to find my strengths. I think that the way I naturally just found them is by doing a lot of stuff. And I think that's actually just an important part of the process, even if you do try to do it intentionally. Mm-hmm. Is you can't find your strengths if you haven't tried a lot of different things. So you need experience.
Okay.
And so that kind of goes along with, I'm going to bring up Malcolm Gladwell again. Or wait. No, sorry. Not Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh.
God, what's his name?
Seth Godin.
The commencement speech.
Oh, Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman's, it goes along with that thing where his first rule or his first piece of advice is just do stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's very important. You just gotta start doing stuff, heading down some path. Otherwise, you have no information to go off of to make any decisions whatsoever. You're completely blind. Mm-hmm. So in order to find your strengths, you gotta experiment. You gotta date around.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you know what you like if you don't date around? No, I'm just kidding. I only basically had one serious girlfriend in my life, and I ended up marrying her. So I don't know why I'm giving that advice.
Oh, dear. The implications.
And also, don't date around. If you find that thing you love right away when you're 13.
Yeah.
So just stick with it.
Oh, there was a guy, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but I might have mentioned him in our first season, who saw a piano in a Bugs Bunny cartoon when he was 4 years old and knew that was his instrument for life. So yeah, it does happen.
But I mean, I knew I loved to draw and paint when I was very young, but I still did so many other things too, just because I was just interested and I wanted to try other things, programming, animation, anyway, whatever, lots of stuff, but that stuff helped me discover that it's not really drawing and painting that I love. Mm-hmm. It's the process of creating something that I love.
Yes.
And that's where my strengths are, is creating stuff. And I don't need to paint. I don't need to do any of that stuff. As long as I'm making something, I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar experience. Let me tell you about mine. I did fall in love with drawing in my middle school years. So I must have been 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. But it wasn't just falling in love with drawing, much more than with painting. It was what you said. I was in my dad's studio, and I did a little drawing that kind of worked, and there was a feeling I love to be in an environment. The environment says, this is what this is for, this is what you're going to do, you've done it, and you got into a zone, and there was so much satisfaction in that. It reverberated out to other things, to writing and reading, very much to reading, and just conversations. Anything where there is a ritualized focus and concentration was the big process I fell in love with. But it was specifically lines on paper that looked like something.
Yeah. How old were you?
11, 12, 13.
Nice. Yeah, that's same here.
There was another side to it, too, which is seeing other people do it. Seeing the Mad Magazine artists do what they did was another thing, and children's book writers and illustrators really wanting to do that. But I'm straying from where we're going, which is to find strengths by first finding loves.
Even if you suck at the thing you love doing, enjoying doing something will often lead to being good at it. Because it will, I know. Like, let's say you are good at something naturally, like your body is just built for lifting heavy things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just got the genetics, but you don't like construction, or you don't like powerlifting competitions or whatever it is. You just don't enjoy it. Then who cares if you're naturally good at something if you don't enjoy it?
I have always felt that way, and I still do. But there is an important qualifier on here, and that is the amateur auditioner who loves doing something and puts other people through it. And it's so excruciating to endure it that there does come a point where the love of doing it, singing before a podcast, for example, is not necessarily the thing that everybody else is going to love. There is a balance of, do you do it well enough to where another person should be, would want to be put through it? I know it's a qualifier, but I say it because of times when it's really rough on the fact that I love doing this, therefore you should love attending to it.
Well, yes. So there has to be an overlap with those things. Yeah. Where the overlap is where you're going to find probably the most success. Okay. But I would say start with the things you love.
I would too. And
within those things, discover what you are actually good at.
Agreed. Okay. Now, we're starting with loves. But we don't want to end on loves, because we want to go to where we find out that we really do this in a way that we can get rewarded for it, that we feel good about what we've done, because other people feel good about it as well. And the point that you made in that first episode was that maybe we should dig down more into this, digging down into what our strengths are.
Wait, what?
And we should take this.
We're doing a lot of digging.
Yeah, we should take this episode to dig into this.
Yeah. Okay. Should I get my shovel?
Okay. Yeah, I want you to get out the tools that you need to help me as a person who's tuning into this podcast for the first time, saying, who are these people? And what do they have to offer me? What do you have to offer them?
One thing I remember reading a long time ago, I think it was from Tim Ferriss. He said something along the lines of like emailing a bunch of people that you're close to and asking them about your strengths and your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And just send them like a survey or something, or have them respond. But sometimes doing it anonymously can get you better results, I think. Right?
They aren't afraid of hurting your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if they're close to you, they're not going to tell you your weaknesses if they know you're going to hear what know that they're the one saying it. So, send them an anonymous survey, and they could just like tell you what you're good at, what you're bad at. And then when the results start coming in, don't worry about who says this stuff. Just imagine this is just coming from the universe. This is like facts about you, right? Mm-hmm. And this is like a learning experience. And you're going to get a lot of really good feedback because you have these perceptions about yourself. But then when you start getting other people's observations of you, they might not match what you know about yourself or think about yourself, especially if those observations start to align between many people. If you start seeing people repeating the same stuff, it's probably true. And you know,
Indeed.
Good for the good and the bad. You might not realize you have a strength, and but everybody around you does know that you have this strength. So I never tried this on my own, but I feel like I got this naturally just through growing up in a Russian family.
Tell me more. How does it happen that in a Russian family it would be different?
Well, they're very blunt. Uh-huh. Everybody's very blunt with each other. Mm-hmm. They don't hold back. That just tell you what they think about you.
Yeah.
and your strengths and your weaknesses. It's like when they see something they really like about you, they'll just be like, oh my God, you're so this and that, and you'll just be complimented and kissed on the cheek, and then when you are really bad at something, my dad will come up and be like, man, you just really suck at this. Yeah. You really don't do this well. I'm like, what the hell, Dad? So I didn't really need to get a survey out there. My whole life growing up, I would just constantly be given this feedback, whether I wanted it or not. So what about you, though? Did you ever survey anybody?
I've done it a little, yeah. When this book, Strengths Finder, was going around in friends and family, that was where those conversations began. And also late late 20th century, 1998, 99, 2000, I had a student who was doing her master's thesis on the Meyers Briggs David Keirsey temperament profiles. And when I got talking with her, I spent a year and a half delving into it because my first response was, this explains so much about why some people don't get along, is because their temperament and values, what they feel is most important, do not align with another person's, and each one of them can be strong in what they do, but that strength can rub up against another person's love of bringing it to closure when you love keeping options open. Those kinds of things. On Keirsey's system, that is the P to J, perceiver or prober, to judge or closer. Those things really made sense to me, so I followed them through. I even put together a seminar on it, on artistic temperaments and achievement.
Wow.
To carry through with it, because it is useful, but it's also limited. Now, rather than
can I? How do we get access to this seminar thingy?
We'll do it. We'll do it eventually as a PROKO course, maybe.
Oh, man.
Stan, here's one of the reasons.
I want to know now.
I say in my seminar that the tests are practically worthless to take, because it means that you just have one opportunity after another to lie about yourself and not even know that you're lying, because you think you're one way when you're actually another way. And the better way to know who you are temperament-wise is to listen to what your family gripes about, what people around you have griped about all your life, and then you'll see that as probably the downside.
Right.
The negative side of what could be something that you are strong on and that you defend.
I got an idea.
Go ahead.
How about you ask 3 to 5 of your closest people in your life to take that test for you, and then you take the average of each answer as the better truth.
Good thinking. I would write it down, but since this is a podcast, I'll just watch that part on repeat till I sink it into my brain.
We should try that, though. Seriously, because you've taken that test, right? Probably several times already in your life, right?
No, I have never taken it.
What?
I got sick of it 10 questions in, tried again later, and 12, 15 questions in. I thought, no, this is ridiculous, because it's like with our podcast. Every question, the answer is depends.
But you know so much about each letter, C, B, D, J, whatever, C,
I do.
J, F, K, Z. How do you know about all that stuff about each personality type without ever really doing it yourself? What is it?
From a year and a half of making it the constant topic of conversation among people who cared about it, and also
without ever doing it yourself.
No, I didn't take the test, Stan.
How do you go a year and a half constantly talking about it?
It is so easy. Can I give a 1-minute version of what it is?
Yes, please. If they don't know what Myers-Briggs is, this is probably so confusing to them.
Carl Jung got this started in the early 20th century. Myers-Briggs, a mother-daughter team, developed it in the mid-20th century for corporations to help them. And then David Keirsey started running with it in the 80s or 90s.
What is it? What is it?
What is it?
It is to understand temperament on 4 different polarities, 4 different sets of opposites, extrovert, introvert. If you're right in the middle, that doesn't help you much. But if you're really extroverted or really introverted, it's obviously a temperamental leaning. The next one is intuitive or sensory. Intuitive is inside your head. Whether you're a feeler or a thinker, you spend a lot of time inside your head. Sensory is the external world, what can be seen, felt, more outside oriented. The third polarity is some people bow to logic more. Some people bow to relationships more. That is thinking versus feeling. It's the only one that the research showed a gender difference on. And then the final one is keeping options open and keeping options closed. But when you see these in extremities with people, it's really obvious that some people want to come to closure quickly. Some people want to keep options open. Some people are exhausted after social occasions. Some people are invigorated after them. And so that's where it helps. And then you get 4 big categories and 16 variants out of this. Now, here's where I know what I am on that spectrum. all my life, I don't notice things in the concrete, tangible world. You can rearrange furniture. And when I come into a room, I don't notice that the furniture is rearranged. And if you asked me to describe a person, I mean, physically, what they were wearing, I never remember what people are wearing. But I remember every aspect of the conversation. And some people, many people, something like 80% of people, according to Kiersey's research, are on the opposite side of that spectrum. They don't remember the train of thought of the conversation, but they do remember what a person was wearing and all of the other tactile sensory things. So that is an example, is that when you're on an extreme of one of those polarities, then you can say, I lean this way, and your training will either be to work on something to help you make up for that, or to say, this is what I'm strong with anyway, I might as well work my strength so that I'll compete better.
Oh, is that it?
That was the shortest I could do. I said 1 minute and I took about 3.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about but the thing is about this test is...
You mean the caveat, the whole system is shot with defects and blinders and inconsistencies. The more you study it, the more you see. At first, you see how valuable it is. But then as you go on, you start to see that you can have 2 people. I have 2 friends who tested as ISFPs. And you could not find 2 people more different in their personalities. But one of the things Kiersey said is that temperament is not personality.
But, okay, so this system is flawed. Do you have a better system?
No. Yeah, yes. I have a much better system.
That was a setup.
Yeah, I have a much better system. In that seminar, we spend the first half of the seminar on the Kiersey system, the Meyers Briggs system, and then we show how it's flawed. And then when we come back, we go to the age-old wisdom that was around long before psychological research, and it was to compare yourself and the people around you with natural phenomena, with weather, with an element that you are earth, you are solid, you are constant, you are wind, your moods change regularly, you are fire, useful but destructive, and so on. Animals, comparing yourself with animals.
How is this different? How is that different from associating yourself to a word like introvert or extrovert?
Here is how it's different. It does not pretend to be scientific. The Myers-Briggs Kiersey system is very soft science, as people have pointed out. And metaphor is emotional, and it accounts for contradiction. That's one of the most maddening things about that temperament profile system, is that it does not account for contradiction. Now, the Enneagram and some others, astrological charts and some others, they do account for contradiction. But as soon as you move from something that was based on research, Myers-Briggs, to the Enneagram, then to the astrological chart, you are moving further away from psychological research, and you're moving more toward intuitions and insights. And so that's what I do as a better system, is why not take a few months or a few years to look around at your relationships and the people around you and yourself as a different kind of animal, so that you can say that the bear, when it comes out of hibernation, is not to be messed with. But then in the afternoon, after it's had a meal, it's more playful. And then you've got much richer arena of understanding each other, and you can be different animals in different weather at different times. Some people are lightning storms. They're exciting, but they do a lot of damage. Some people are constant, like a rock, but they're also pretty boring. You don't go to them for something that's exciting. So that's where I aim students. And for some people, it's much harder, but even the people for whom it's much harder are a particular type. They're just the kind of person, I have a hard time comparing myself to weather or animals.
I feel like I would hate doing this. Like, listening to you say this, I feel like I don't want to take the time to think about what animal I am.
You do it with Cooper already, and you do it with Quinn, and all people.
What do you mean?
All people in love do. You liken your beloved to something else that they remind you of. An animal, a rabbit, a kitten, a food, a strawberry. You do this naturally in relationships. Uh-oh, here comes the party pooper. All right, there's Miss Sunshine. You're going to do that because you're emotionally connected, and it's out of those emotions that personal insights come. So that's, anyway, now I know I'm going on too long.
I don't know if I'm the one that is finding those relationships. If I said, here comes Miss Sunshine, it's probably because I've heard somebody say that phrase before when they're referring to some really happy person. I'm not looking for the metaphor myself. I'm just repeating common phrases.
Oh, but you do. When you are close to someone and you observe them, you start to see the volcano is getting ready to erupt. Get out of the way. You start to see people as things that they remind you of. It's a universal human thing. All children do it, and all grown-ups do it with their children in close relationships. It's a natural thing. Now, Stan, we were supposed to be talking about strengths, and I've spent all of this time talking about my assessment
favorite animals
of supposed psychological profiling with ancient ways of understanding people.
This is part of finding your strengths, though, isn't it?
It is part of finding your strength. If you can say, I am a rock, I am an island, then you say, is that really a good description of me? And you can say, yeah, okay, what are the good things and the bad things about it? And then you're digging around. Even when we're talking about digging around for your strengths, we're assuming that we've got strengths in there that are going to take some excavating and that we have not looked into ourselves to see what we're best at. So we're doing it right now just by titling this.
But in order to figure out that you're a rock or you're a puppy or a kitten, you first have to identify specific traits about you and then figure out what animal is associated with that strength or weakness, right?
Yeah.
So why even attach an animal to it if you've already just discovered the thing? Say I'm very thick-skinned, right?
There's no reason to, unless you feel it. When you have a small child and you liken the child to a monkey, a 5-year-old boy is a monkey, and when you liken it over and over.
But in what way? They like to eat a lot of bananas?
No.
They're wild?
Crawl all over everything. They're wild. They're in motion. Okay. I had a student once say, I don't like the idea. She objected to the idea of likening children to monkeys. Why not just call them children? And my response was, because there's no fun in that. There's no play in that. There's no affection in that. The way there is when you look at the kid and you see how much you are like another thing. There's inventiveness in that. So when you say, why not just say you are a human child, the offspring of the bodies of your parents?
I don't mean being literal like that. Human child actually doesn't say anything about you. There's so many different types of human children. Yeah. I mean, like if you figure out, okay, I'm thick-skinned, you could stop right there and be like, I'm thick-skinned. Yeah. I understand what that means. Why do you have to go? I mean, okay, the fun part of it, I get it. But like, it's like, now I have to say, oh, I am a pig.
No,
because pigs have thick skin.
You just did it when you called yourself thick-skinned.
Oh, that was...
You called yourself...
But, okay.
If you're thin-skinned, it's like you are so sensitive to everything. It's like you don't have any skin. Right. You're like a flayed figure. Every little bit of dust makes you go, oh. And when you're thick-skinned, you have used a word picture.
Okay. So it's not the animal part that matters. It's any kind of analogy. Okay, I guess...
Okay, we're going back to last year's lesson on composition, though. It is the likening of one thing to another that gives a little spark of insight. This is a way, though, that families play anyway. If you are around people, you do this anyway. You liken roommates to types.
Yeah.
And when you do that, And when a number of people all see the same thing and agree on it, then you can be pretty sure this person has those qualities.
It seems like there's still a big step missing here.
Okay.
Because in order to figure out that I am thick-skinned, I have to go through some process to figure that out, right? I want to know what you learned from this book. Can you take me through the process? I want to learn about myself.
I can. All
right. Let's do this.
This book, Strengths Finder, it's a list of 34 strengths.
Ah, Jesus Christ. Never mind. I thought this was going to be fun.
Where did you tune out? Was it at the word 34?
Yes, obviously.
It's a list of 34 strengths based on years of research and millions of people interviewed. The kind of interviewing that scientists sometimes don't like. But let's set aside that. I think it is a well-observed list of the 34 qualities you can name in a human being that you could call a strength, like an achiever, a maximizer, an includer, a communicator. And they are listed in alphabetical order, and I'm not a big fan of alphabetical order, but it means, though, that in this book, you can just go through the 34 and say, I think I've got that, and I think I've got that, and oh, I know that Stan has that. And you can say, let's find out more about this, and then look it up in that encyclopedia of the book to read about it. But it starts with a pep talk and an explanation, or a pitch, I'd say, that if we would pay more attention to strengths instead of weaknesses, we might be happy and we might do better. It's a dubious claim, but I will grant it for the enjoyment of reading this book. Why not spend some time listing all of the good qualities that a human could have, and then saying, of these 34, I think there are a few in there that I qualify for.
Okay.
And there are a few in there that my friends qualify for. And then we get ourselves talking about affirming labels. I like that idea.
Okay. So is there a process it takes you through, or is it like an encyclopedia of like a list, and then you just kind of choose your own adventure? You like, oh, I like this one, I want to learn about it, and then you go and you read about it.
There's a process, and it's to take a test.
How long does it take?
I don't know. I haven't taken the test, and I'm not going to.
The test take. How long does the test take?
I don't know. Sorry, I have no interest in the test. I would have interest in the test if I was working on tests, so that I could go through it and whine and say this could have been a better questionnaire. But I'm very critical of those things. Sorry,
Marshall. You said you're going to take me through the process.
Okay. I'm going to take you through the process in this way.
By the end of this, I want to know my strengths.
Okay, I'll work with you right now.
Okay, let's do it.
First of all, it's in alphabetical order. Sorry.
God. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to read a number of these. Okay, activator.
Activator. What does that mean?
A person who gets things done.
Okay.
Communication. A person who can explain things well and likes to. Connectedness. A person who relationships and bringing people together is important to them. Consistency.
No.
Deliberative. Developer. Discipline. Empathy. Focus. Ideation. Includer. Intellection. Learner. You're a learner. That's one of the first ones I put on you.
Okay.
Maximizer. Self-assurance. Strategic. Woo, W-O-O, is winning others over. Some people have a gift of getting things done because they connect with people and they like them and they're persuasive. So that's a little smattering of those 34 strengths. But here is one of the things that Strengths Finder could do as a textbook to help. Is that you've got a list of 34 good qualities, and you can say, I want this one more. Another is context. I never was good at context, but there are some people who have the strength of context. That is to be able to see how things relate to what happened earlier and how they relate to what's happening now with all the other stuff around. Context is so important in life. And if we don't have one of these strengths, and then we take some time to read what a person who has a good sense of context has. It's like a little profile of pursue this virtue. And in order to pursue it, meditate on it first. Understand it. Get a picture of what it's like. One of the things they do, the second thing that they do with each one of these strengths is they say what it sounds like. And then they give a quote from a person who's really extreme on that strength. And you can tell within the first sentence of what they say, this person's values are highly prioritized to be strategic or to get things done, whatever the case, or to make sure everybody feels are okay, or to make sure there's a good plan before we put things into action. So you get to sort of pick up the voice of a person who has that strength.
Yeah, that's good. That's probably a really good way of helping you identify and learn about each of these. I wonder if there's been any studies around this specific list of the most successful teams.
Oh, yeah.
And what combinations are like the best. Like you just get data on thousands of teams and how successful they are and see if there's any patterns on combinations.
This book actually does have, first it gives you a pep talk and a pitch for why we should pay attention to strengths. Then it gives you the entries of the 34 strengths. And each one of these entries starts with a description of that strength.
Okay.
Usually a flattering description, so that if you read it, you say, oh, that's me. Then it gives you some ideas for action, some things that if you have this strength, here's what you could and should do to make the most of it. And then it gives you some warnings, some things to watch out for, but it explains who you can team up with best.
Oh, okay. A compliment?
Yes. A person with command, for example, who takes charge of situations and gets things done, but also can alienate people because they take charge of the situation, is good to team up with a relator, a connector, a person with woo, for example, to help counterbalance.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the final thing in these entries is if you are working with someone who has this strength, here's what we recommend for how to work with them. It's sort of like, here's what kind of food will best appeal to this animal to get them to do what you would like them to do. So each entry is divided into some portions. They're only 3 or 4 page entries. They're short entries. So it is very well laid out so that if you decide, I'm going to use this as a part of how I work with my team and my friends, it's a useful resource. It certainly was the result of a lot of work for whatever criticisms people have of it. Now, should we go to you? Should we get to you?
Sure. Out of those 34, which 34 are my strengths?
Here's the first one.
You didn't get my
joke.
The
first one is futuristic.
Oh, that was one of those?
Yeah. I didn't mention it, but futuristic is one of them.
Okay, I'm going to write these down. Futuristic.
Stan Prokopenko is futuristic. That is, he gets excited about optimism for what could happen with these new tools and what.
Yes.
Yeah, that is so you. Another is
you already said learner. Yeah. Okay.
At first I thought analytical, because analytical is one of them, and then I thought, no, Stan, if I'm going to have to choose 5, analytical has according to their definition of it, has a prove it attitude. And you've got some of that, but it is so concerned.
What do you mean? What is prove it?
Prove it. You're making a claim, prove it.
Oh, prove it. Okay.
I want to know what all of the scientific evidence is there. And their bent goes that way, so much so that they might be better off as a challenging attorney. But learner, you are definitely a learner.
Right. Okay.
The next one is achiever. Hang on. I thought it was achiever. But then achievers have a hard time turning it off. They have a hard time getting away from work. And I've watched you, and that you can boil your work week down to about an hour work week. And I think there's a better one that fits your achieving profile, and that is maximizer.
Okay.
A maximizer looks at it and says, I could get more done with less. And that's even what brought up this whole episode. Is the 80-20 rule. I think that you naturally tend toward maximizing. So that's one I'd put on you.
But I still do have a hard time not working.
So we're going to have to grant you 7 strengths.
Maybe 34.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what we're going to end on, is all 34 strengths.
You're just going to keep going?
No. One of them was strategic, but then I thought, no, I'm around people who are extremely strategic. My older brother is extremely strategic ever since he was little. And I know a few people like that that are so strategic that I wouldn't necessarily say that you hit that as much as 2 others that fit you.
Yeah, I don't think I'm very strategic.
The 2 that fit you are self-assurance.
More like ego, right? Is that what that means?
A self-assurance is a person who knows they've got something to offer. And ego is the downside of it. You know, they make a little bit of the downside of these things, not as much as I would.
Yeah.
But self-assurance is what people have who, if they are going to be in front of the audience, in front of the camera, if their name's going to be on the product, there is a confidence of my name ought to be on the product because this is my thing. And you see it in some great achievers, actually.
You can't spell self-assurance without ass. Okay,
very good,
what's the next
boy. The final one that I have for you is significance. Significance is what Steve Jobs made a big deal out of. Why is he putting all this energy into doing Apple back when it was moving forward and innovating and doing all that? So what is the point? You know, is it to make money? No, it wasn't to make money. Is it to make people's lives easier? Yeah, but I don't sense he's a guy who wants to make people's lives easier.
No.
Yeah. He said something like it was to make a ding in the universe.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
That my voice went out and it made a difference. Everybody wants significance. Lejos Egri, in his book, The Art of Dramatic Writing, and many people who've written, Dale Carnegie, have pointed out, this is one of the most important emotional needs we have in life, is to be significant in the lives of others, even if we act badly to do it. But there are some people who that is their strength, is that they are significant. They start a company and it does turn an industry around. And to act like that isn't a strength would seems silly. So yeah, I would land on these 5 for you: futuristic, learner, maximizer, self-assurance, and significance. And that's after having given it 20 minutes, half hour of thought yesterday, specifically just to you. But
wow, you spent 30 minutes on me?
Well, I spent about 6 or 7 hours yesterday in this book. I very much enjoyed it.
Now that sounds like a very little
so it was, you only got a small percentage of it. Still, you're significant. But still.
Yeah, cool. Now, does it say to identify the 5 that you least identify with?
Yeah, that gets brought up. That you look at the ones that would be, okay, let me bring up a criticism of this. There are a number of criticisms of this this system. One of them,
no animal associations, right? They need to.
That's my criticism of it. Not enough animal
futuristic. I'm a robot.
Yeah. Let me tell you some thoughtful people's criticisms. This is not based on scientific evidence. The research is based on research, but the conclusions that focusing on your strengths makes teams better has not been researched enough to make the claim. But there is another thing. And it's what Robert McKee called negaphobia. There is such a concern with keeping it positive that keeping it positive can end up being something negative because it does not acknowledge where the problems are. And there is a little bit of acknowledging of the problems in here. But there is not as much. If I were to rewrite this thing or have some fun with it, I think every one of these chapters should include a worst case scenario. That this strength, when amplified unchecked, can become this toxic, and see if we could make it entertaining by seeing how far we could push it to disaster.
Let's go through my weaknesses.
No.
You can't think of any?
Let's not yet. I think that it would be worth taking time with each one of these to give some thought to the downside of it, and then ask, do I need to work on that? Or do I need to team up with someone who will counterpoint it. That is the whole thing
Right.
about the relationship between good cop and bad cop. One of them, it lays down the law, and one of them makes the person feel better about the fact that the law is going to be laid down one way or another. I'm just going to try to make you feel like I'm on your side. It is a teaming up.
Yeah, that's the whole point of what I was thinking of, is if you identify the 5 that you least are like, that will help you find somebody that could help you with that. If you're going to start a business, or if you're hiring someone to help you, like, why not find that person that could fill in those gaps? Not to just like know why you suck, but
well, hey, before we make comparisons, I'm going to list my strengths, or the ones that that in discussing it with other people over those few years we were doing this.
No, it's okay. You can decide on these on your own. You don't have to say.
I can be more self-assured.
Yes.
It's one of my weaknesses. Okay, here we go. Marshall is a learner. I know that I'm a learner. Because of the joy in music and movies and authors, and looking them up on Wikipedia, so that I can't even watch a movie without a week of research on it. I thought analytical, but then when I thought about the proving and disproving is not that important to me. It's more intellection. Intellection is where this person really likes to take time to think things through from as many angles as possible. And then that leads to the third one, which is ideation.
Oh, I love ideation too.
I know you do. I know you do. But we had to put some limits on this. We're limiting them to 5. Okay. The third one is communication.
I'll trade you one of mine for one of yours.
Well, we could see we are doing that. We're doing that with this podcast. If a strength was youth and old age, we're balancing.
Okay.
Communication, which is one that I never signed up for and never understood until as time went. That's why I didn't finish with school, is because I never had any expectation to be a teacher. I just sort of got elected by people around me who would give me opportunities to explain. And I found that my energy likes to go there. Clarifying is fun. It's like finding dirty coins and cleaning them up. And so, communication is one. And then the last 2 would be either relator or empathy or connector. It's hard to say, but I think when I read the profiles, empathy is something that I can turn off and really be unempathetic. But I think that there is a natural, on the Keirsey Meyers Briggs spectrum, it's feeler versus thinker. I thought of myself for most of my adult life as a thinker, because I was raised in an environment that prized logic over emotion, thinking over feeling. But I came to the conclusion in my 40s, you have never been inclined to be a thinker that is the logic side of thinking so much as the emotional side of thinking. And that would be empathy or relator or connector.
Now, is learner not connected to thinker?
Those relationships between these strengths are fuzzy, because who chooses these 34 terms? The researchers. And I've got a huge gripe with the Keirsey system that uses the word perceiver instead of prober, that uses the word judge instead of closure. I have a huge gripe with these terms, but if we're going to take the time to use that system, we have to spend some time. And here, Stan, is where I think it's useful. Learner implies thinker and analytical and intellection. But then when you take the time to read the profiles and you say, when they use that term, they emphasize this leaning of the term or this leaning of the term. But just to talk about that, as we are right now, just to talk about this among friends for a while means that you get your head around human strengths. So it's a great little meditation, if nothing else.
Yeah, this process it is, I think, very good to go through with people. I remember actually when I was introduced to the Meyers Briggs by a friend. It's at school. It was at Watts Atelier, and we would always hang out with the students. Would hang out, and we went over to someone's house, and she was like, "Look at this book I found," and we like read the first chapter or something, and then we're like, "Let's all take the test," and then we spent like a whole day taking the test and talking about it and like analyzing each other and be like, no, you're not that, and like basically learning about ourselves. And that, I think that was very useful.
And was it fun?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was like playing board games, like right? It was like, but we're like doing this book thing.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate nerd board game.
Now, the things that we are not, I know that I am not competitive, and that was ever since I was a child. I don't care if somebody really wants to win. Why don't we just say that you won from the beginning? And that way we can play. Another one is I'm not strategic, which the two go together. If you're competitive, you're probably strategic. I don't think about strategies in relationships and other things. My energy just doesn't go there. Adaptability. I've proven to be adaptable in some instances, but it's not something I incline toward. And in fact, you've got a number of the qualities that I feel like I am weakest on. And how about you? Do you...
Youth?
No, I had youth.
Hair?
Yeah. I don't want it back. Be nice to get a wig that would make it so I could play a character who kept his hair all the way through, but I don't want to have to deal with it. Let me tell you one of the ones that I saw that you do not have this strength.
Okay.
It's empathy.
Yeah, I know. That was like that was the one that I was like, oh, yeah, that's not.
Yeah. That's one of the ones that stood out. Stan's not that empathetic.
It's like, what? You get over it. But anyway, Marshall, thank you for complimenting me. I'm surprised ego wasn't. Oh, self-assurance. Yeah. Okay. My self-assurance has been tickled, and I feel happy now.
Great.
Let's move on. Okay.
Is there anything else about StrengthsFinder you want to know? Because you've got stuff that you have intended to say that you haven't said yet, right?
It was about what we were talking about, how, enjoying something versus being good at something, how they don't always align, but you got to find the match. Yeah. I said focus on the things you're good at, and then from those, figure out what you enjoy. No, the other thing. I said focus on the things you enjoy, and then within those, find which ones you're actually good at. Yes. There is actually the opposite angle, though, because sometimes you might grow up doing something you're good at for a long time, and then realize you actually don't enjoy it. Yeah. You can learn a lot about yourself from that, though, too, because you're good at it. Like let's say you're really good at like chess or something, but you really just don't enjoy it. Chess is not your strength. There's some underlying strengths there that might lead to other things that you will be just as good at and will enjoy.
I understand.
You might just be really good at strategic thinking.
That's right.
Right? And you don't have to apply strategic thinking to chess. You can apply it to developing a business or helping people do something.
Yes.
Right? Like there's so many different applications to that one strength. You can identify your underlying strengths from the things you're good at but don't enjoy and carry them over.
If a person is good at chess, that means they've got the intuitive side of the Meyers Briggs system. They're in their head. They're probably thinkers, analytical, and strategic, but they might say, by the time I've done well, I've won a chess game. So what? Yeah. It doesn't affect people's lives. And so there's got to be another thing. I had a student who took classes with me for years who has been a successful attorney. He makes a good living as an attorney with a single client. And he decided in middle age to study art. And his whole reasoning, as he explained it, is that I want something I can hold in my hand and show at the end of the day for the work. Whereas as an attorney, there was nothing really concrete that came out of it. So, right. And when he went about learning watercolor and anatomy, he went about it very much
like a lawyer.
Like a lawyer. He did.
Great.
Yeah, he'd get all the parts out and really see which ones are the most important ones to learn, and really organized with it. It was very interesting to see.
That's the great thing about art, is that you could literally have any combination of strengths and be a good artist, because there's so many elements to art.
Yeah.
That you can come in from one side and have your own unique thing, and somebody else could be strong in something completely different and also be a really good artist. and there's room for literally any type of person in art.
There's a garbage truck coming. Just little warning. Yeah.
I knew there was something missing.
There's been enough garbage in what they've been talking about. I want something to comment on it.
I think it's so funny that we record these on Garbage Day every week.
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
So literally every episode is Garbage Day.
It's how people will remember it.
Yeah.
It was, I used to really enjoy sifting through the garbage, and then I found out it wasn't the classiest thing to do.
Now, okay, I actually do have a question. Let's say you identify, okay, I find my 5. I'm futuristic learner, maximizer, self-assurance, significance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Now what? Okay, how do I use this to my advantage? How do I maximize this knowledge about myself?
Let's just look up the maximizer, and I'll tell you if there's something in here. Excellence.
Okay.
Not average is your measure. Taking something from below average to slightly above average takes a great deal of effort and, in your opinion, is not very rewarding. Transforming something strong into something superb takes just as much effort, but it is much more thrilling. You get the idea. Okay.
Yeah. That's cool.
Ideas for actions.
Okay, there you go.
Seek roles in which you are helping people succeed. You do that.
Okay.
Devise ways to measure your performance and the performance of others. You do that. Once you've identified your own greatest talents, stay focused on them. Refine your skills. Develop a plan to use your most powerful talents outside of work.
Okay.
Problem solving might drain your energy and enthusiasm. Look for a restorative partner who can be your chief troubleshooter and problem solver. You do that. Study success. You do that. You listen to Mixergy over and over and over.
Not
Deliberately spend time with people who've discovered their strengths.
By the way, Marshall, I had my Mixergy interview this morning.
I know. Yeah. Tell us about it.
I was on Mixergy.
You were on Mixergy. You were a guest. You went from being a fan to being a participant.
To being a man.
Tell us about it.
From fan to man. From fan to stan.
Oh, man.
It was fun. It was great.
Are you happy with how it went?
I think it went really well, yes. And I think it'll come out before this episode comes out. So
well, that means we can let everybody know that if you want more, go here.
If you want to listen to me talk some more.
After that NFT one, you're going to have people who say, no thanks, or yeah, futuristic.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much in here.
Yeah.
But that gives you an idea that you look up one of these strengths that you say, hey, here's my suggestion. Here's my suggestion for this book. I think the best way into this is to look over the list with somebody and find out which ones are close enough to you and the person you're doing this with to actually look them up and read them.
Yeah.
And that's going to take care of at least 5 right there, maybe 10. And then you've got another 24 to look over and you bring other people in it. And so you're only digging where there's something that you care about is how did the experts categorize my strengths? That's a great way into this.
Yeah. I kind of want to hire someone to do this for me.
Because you're a maximizer.
Yeah. I listen to this and I'm like, man, I really don't want to go through this book. But it sounds so useful. I want to have someone do it.
Let me tell you that I will go through the book again. I'll go through the whole book again. And this time with a pencil, and mark every good quality that I want to ingest and give it some thought. Not that I'll necessarily have that good quality, but just to be aware of the virtues. This is whatever things are good, give some thought to those things. I do find it encouraging to spend time on something where people have put in millions of hours trying to identify the best of what we have to offer. There is something inspiring about it.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll make it into a little webinar or seminar or gathering some year where if you want to do it, we've got a little club of people who will meet once a month or once a week for a few weeks to see what we get out of it.
Yeah, you know what does sound fun is actually that part of it. Making it into a social event. That actually does sound fun to me. But yeah, doing it on my I don't know. Reading this book on my own does not sound fun.
Yeah.
But it'd be like the Meyers Briggs thing where if I do it with people and we talk about it and we label each other, we all have these stickers and we just like, boom, you're this and this and boom, boom, and then you go at the end of it and be like, oh, I got 5 learners. Uh-huh. I got 3 maximizers. Yeah. That'd be fun.
Yeah, and then you find that some birds of a feather flock together, and that some others make exchange of favors for what their strengths are. That's segues into team building.
Yeah,
which is what all of this was about. Is how to make better harmony within groups.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this up to my team. Once this stupid COVID thing is over and we can actually get together and stick things onto each other, we're going to play that game. You should be there.
I'd like to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have a question for them?
I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've got a question for them. Because
okay.
The obvious question is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And then you can have 1,000 of these. But this might be a good one. Is there any one of these qualities that you prize most? Which one do you think is one of the most valuable things to have that you want? That way, the thought given to that puts a little responsibility back onto each person who shares what they prize most, that how will I develop this strength?
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, in the comments, everybody, go look up Strengths Finder list. Look at these 34 words, read about them, and then after hours of research, let us know which one is the most valuable.
And if you're going to develop it further, you have to include worst case scenarios. Have you ever seen the 9 types of girlfriend and the 9 types of boyfriend on the internet?
God, that sounds like it wouldn't work anymore in today's society.
But have you ever read what somebody wrote? The 9 types of girlfriend and the 9 types of boyfriend. They're very entertaining. It's the pros and cons of 9 different types that you have probably been involved with in one way or another. They are exaggerated caricatures, but they're very funny because each one has a plus and a negative that is a plus and a minus that is that's recognizable and entertaining. So we could do that with these strengths.
Sounds fun.
All right. Thanks, Stan.
All right, Marshall. Thank you for learning me.
Okay. Good talking to you. See you next week.
All right. Bye.